The US defense budget is set to rise modestly from about 850 billion in 2025 to roughly 860 billion by 2029. That's an average annual growth rate of 0.5%. When looking at global military spending, it is projected to climb from around 2.2 trillion in 2022 to roughly 3 trillion by 2028. That works out to an average annual growth rate of about 5.3% over that period. So what are the underlying drivers of these forecasts? So we're seeing defense spending climb steadily, and a big reason for that is rising geopolitical tensions, pushing governments to invest more, not just in traditional military capabilities, but also in cyber and space defense. All of this points to solid and sustained demand for the industry well into the future. Next to that, the US defense contracting landscape is being transformed by the rapid modernization of combat and surveillance systems. Agencies are turning to advanced technologies to sharpen their edge on the battlefield. A key driver for this is the growing adoption of unmanned aerial systems, as defense leaders focus on capabilities like autonomous swarming, precision strikes, and long-endurance surveillance. So in the US defense market, we see six main segments. So generalist players, air, C4ISR, land, sea, and firearms and ammunition. Now, while there are some differences between groups, EBITDA margins stay fairly steady across the board. What stands out more, though, is the link between the innovation and growth. When we look at the 3-year revenue CAGR, tech-driven companies like AeroVironment, known for its unmanned defense systems, and Astronics, specializing in aerospace and defense technology, have delivered strong revenue growth. On the other hand, more traditional players, particularly in the firearms and ammunition space, like Smith & Wesson and Ruger, have seen their growth rates slow down. This could be partially explained by ongoing defense modernization. Governments are putting more money into advanced tech-driven systems, while demand for traditional products lags behind the momentum seen in a tech-driven segment. The first segment we address here is generalist players. These companies make a wide range of systems for land, air, and sea, from tanks, missiles, and submarines to jet fighters, avionics, and ammunition. Unlike specialists, they operate on a larger scale with vertically integrated production. Big names like Lockheed Martin delivered complete multi-domain systems to maximize government contract opportunities. The US leads the global arms trade, making up 43% of exports from 2020 to 2024, over 7 times more than China and 5 times more than Russia. So, in general, competition in the US defense industry has fallen off, with many parts of the market now dominated by just 1 or 2 companies. Today, the sector is led by the so-called Big Five, which is Lockheed Martin, RTX, General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, and Boeing. So these giants have production capacity at a huge scale, tightly integrated operations, and decades of experience working through complexities of government contracts. They also dominate the market for big-ticket weapon systems across different domains, such as fighter jets, where just a handful of players control almost everything. The ongoing wave of consolidation is driven by these major players looking to grow vertically and secure advanced technologies. A good example is Lockheed Martin's purchase of Terran Orbital, a satellite manufacturer, to bolster its space capability. In this segment, companies develop and produce military aircraft and aerospace systems, including fixed-wing combat jets, rotary-wing aircraft, unmanned aerial systems, and associated components. In the US air defense market, both fixed-wing and rotary-wing combat aircraft are dominated by just a few big players. On the fixed-wing side, companies like, again, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Boeing take on most of the fighter and bomber programs. For helicopters, it's mainly Lockheed Martin's Sikorsky division and Textron Bell that win the contracts. These companies frequently compete against each other for nearly all major air defense contracts. So, compared to the US, the European air defense market is significantly more fragmented. One key reason is that Europe is not a United States of Europe, but rather a union of sovereign nations, each with its own priorities and preference for supporting domestic industry champions. This often leads to duplication of programs and overlapping efforts. For example, France has developed the Rafale fighter jet independently, while four other countries collaborated on the Eurofighter Typhoon. Two major programs serving similar purposes, but competing for resources within the same region. Now I would like to move on to the C4ISR segment, which stands for Command, Control, Communications, Computers, Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance. This covers companies that build and supply integrated systems like sensors and optics, as well as the software needed to gather, process, and share information. These tools help the military to make decisions, maintain situational awareness, and coordinate operations effectively. The big five defense contractors have a long-standing foothold in this space, but now competing with a growing number of startups. That's partially because it's easier to break into this segment than into traditional hardware markets, where big players have ruled for decades. In fact, roughly half of US federal defense spending goes toward intellectual property, with the rest directed to major equipment and hardware sales purchases.